Mark follows top rock band Genesis on the road.
I remember we were once described by an East Grinstead local paper as a folk blues jazz rock mystical group.
Genesis are at their best in concert. Nearly everywhere they play, they take the audience by storm. And last year they were voted #1 live band in the world. This film is about the group and the 100 people behind them. The roadies, the truckers, the sound team, the lighting crew, the engineers and the management. More background personnel than a symphony orchestra. We follow them on 3 European dates, from Mannheim, across Germany, to Leiden in Holland, then over the Channel to the Rock Music Festival at Knebworth in England. Although they're rarely in the hit parade, Genesis are a supergroup, one of perhaps 5 groups in the world that always sell out, one of the few bands that can even fill the huge American halls. The millions of fans are there for more than just the sound. 200 jumbo jet lights change exactly to the music. The special effects would make a Hollywood mogul proud. The amplifiers are loud enough to drive 10,000 neighbours wild. Phil Collins on vocals and drums. Tony Banks on keyboards. Mike Rutherford on guitar. You might not have heard of them, but they have a massive following among the young that take rock music seriously. First, the group themselves. And in the beginning was Charterhouse.
A carved oak table tells a tale of times when kings and queens sipped wine from goblets gold, and the brave would lead their ladies from out the room to Arby's Cool.
It might seem odd that a successful rock band should have started out at a major public school. The tradition was for Vaughan Williams and the classics, not rock music, so the influence of Charterhouse is limited to being the place where the group first met.
We used to just sort of play together in dining rooms and things like that. Various people in the school used to do the same sort of thing, go around with, drum kit that was made up of a sort of snare drum and one bass drum and things. Just trying to sort of imitate these kind of groups.
Was it encouraged?
I wouldn't say it was encouraged, no. In fact, it wasn't as discouraged as it might have been. It depended a lot on your particular housemaster. I think Mike suffered a lot of discouragement.
I was banned from playing guitar throughout my whole career there.
Really?
Although I did, but I had a funny housemaster, yes. It was a very sort of strange period. But it probably made me do it even more. You know what it's like when you're not allowed to do something.
In spite of the opposition, they survived the discipline and left in '68 to form a professional group with Peter Gabriel as singer. Over the next couple of years, the band was constantly changing, and in the summer of 1970, they auditioned for a drummer, and finally chose Phil Collins, previously the drummer with Flaming Youth.
And it was quite funny because the day I'd auditioned, they had about 4 or 5 other drummers down there. And I was the first there, but not the first to be seen. So I had a swimming pool in the back garden. It was luxury compared to what I was used to. And we used £5 a week in Flaming Youth, And here was £10 a week, which was, by those standards, quite extortionate. Anyway, they had a swimming pool, and Peter invited us both to go swimming, myself and Ronnie. And so we went swimming. And all the time, I was listening to the other guys doing their parts. And of course, they were offering the same, they were auditioning the same kind of pieces for everybody. So by the time I got to play, I knew all the bits, you see. So I walked in there pretty slick, you know, and I sort of made it sound a bit hard. And then I'd play along, and I suppose I impressed everybody, so I got the job.
His background was theatrical and could hardly be more different from the rest. He started acting when he was 6 and finally went professional in his teens as the Artful Dodger.
Yeah, when I was on my 14th birthday, actually, that was when I first did my first professional job. Although I did some modelling, you know, like for knitting patterns and stuff, which is all rather embarrassing.
Knitting patterns, really?
Yeah, well, you see, my mother was involved in a theatrical agency for kids. I did a lot of other things. I did television, half-hour, 30-minute theatres, BBC Two and stuff like that, which was okay. But the last thing I did was a children's film, called Calamity the Cow, which has just been re-released. And featuring Phil Collins from Genesis, it said.
Really?
Which,
do you like your performance?
I've never seen it. I'd like to go and see it. I had to drag along one of my children to Saturday Morning Picture. But I fell out with the director, you see, because at that time I was starting to grow up a little bit and had my own idea as to how my part should be played. And I was supposed to be the main kid in the film. But because I didn't really sort of see eye to eye with the guy, I went on holiday somewhere during the film. You know, he wrote me out of the film. And I went on holiday halfway through and came back just in time to rescue the cow.
Dad, you said I could have a cow of my own. Can I have this one?
Oh, now hold on. I'm in one of our herd.
You said I could choose.
Yes, you did. That's right, Dad.
It looks like you're in a spot. Sell? Well, the same to me. All right, I'll take her. We're gonna have to buy you beforehand. Very, very nice.
By early 1973, they were already attempting the technical sophistication that's routine for them today. But 5 years ago, it fell apart. They desperately needed a manager and turned to a promoter, Tony Smith, for help.
And the first date was in Glasgow. And I arrived up in Glasgow to see them, and total chaos on the stage, absolute chaos. And finally, we had to cancel the show because they had something like 400 volts of electricity running through every single piece of equipment on the stage. Just could not walk on the stage. And I had to cancel the show in Glasgow, which is not the easiest of places to cancel shows, especially when the audience are in. And after that, I went back to the hotel and I sat down with them and said, look, you really ought to get a manager, because at that point they didn't have a manager as such. They had a lawyer and they had a chap who was trying to do his best on the road but just couldn't cope with it. And so they thought about that. And then towards the end of the tour, they came to me and said, well, you know, you're saying we should get a manager, why don't you do it? So I said, okay. And that's when my trouble started.
Since then, with slick management and constant touring, they've gradually become internationally successful. These days, the really big bands depend on LP sales, and Genesis albums have sold millions. They've slowly evolved into a fairly highbrow group with a reputation for never playing a bad concert. And if they're not household names, it's because their music, although melodic, would never go down in the discos.
We never expected to become successful, I don't think, really, although we always had the confidence that we could do it. It's a kind of a double thing. We always knew that we were a good group, and that if we kept going and we had a few breaks, which we have had, that we could be successful, I suppose, from that point of view. But then you never feel you're actually going to get those breaks. There are so many moments. It takes such a long time. I mean, Genesis has, in fact, existed in one form or other for 10 years. And you just don't feel you're ever really going to sort of get there.
Are you surprised to be where you are now?
Yes, when I think about it, I never thought we'd get anywhere like this. But then you can never look that far ahead. When I was starting off, I thought if we played the Marquee Club in London, I thought, Christ, we made it, you know, success. But when you got there, the Marquee Club was like history, it wasn't important, and you go for the next thing. There's always another stage.
My job is almost like running a factory, in as much that you have the group, which you could describe as a design team, and the originators, and also the board of directors. And then you have the road crews, you have the merchandising organisation, i.e. the record companies, you have the legal department, the accounts. It's running a factory, basically. I mean, when we're on the road, and we're talking about involving, if you include the people that work on the road, we're involving up to 100 people one way or another.
100 people, controlled by manager Smith, but all dependent on 3 travelling musicians. In the middle of May, we joined Genesis in Europe to film behind the scenes of that massive touring operation. In an average year, Genesis will spend more than 6 months touring. 200 nights in different hotels and halls, the different countries merging into one ecstatic crowd. When we joined them late on a Thursday night, 11,000 Germans were leaving the ice stadium in Mannheim with decibeled ears and British music in their hearts. Before the last fans have left, the operation has already started. How to get a stage full of lights and sound gear reassembled and working 350 miles away in Holland by Saturday lunchtime. Behind the group are the 37 members of a tough, highly paid and highly strung road crew. This is an 8-hour day compressed into as little time as possible. In the 2 hours it takes for the band to eat and wind down, some of the most sophisticated rock equipment yet invented is put to bed. 20 tons of lighting, staging, faders, speakers, lasers, mirrors, drums, microphones, guitars and organs to be packed away. And tonight the German stagehands, who usually come with the hall, had unexpectedly gone home. What's happened to the stagehands?
That's what I'd like to know. They all split. I don't know. You know, usually we have a 13-man light crew, 5-man sound crew, which is like 18 to 20 people all together to do this, and we're supposed to have 20 extra people here that the house and local promoter provides, and they help to set down, and then right now, they're all gone. There's nobody here. They're all gone.
Afterwards, the road crew count the cost in grazed knees, crushed fingers and fatigue. All that's left behind, like graffiti, is the rubbish. Everything else is in the trucks.